We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we are going to be talking about Will Ferrell's watches. If you're not familiar with who Will Ferrell is, he is actually a very popular comedian, so you probably don't watch TV, but he's also on YouTube. Very funny guy, been on the scene for probably decades now. I think he is actually pretty hilarious. But once again, thank you so much for coming back for another episode. I really do appreciate it. Of course, do not forget to like and subscribe because it will notify you of me releasing more videos like this and in the future. And of course, leave in the comments things you'd like to see in the future, and I will do my very best to incorporate them. And you can find me on Instagram, The Real John P, where many of you already have. And on there, you can see probably one of my favorite watches we just got in at delraywatch.com is an H. Moser, a very, very special watch produced in stainless steel for the retailer Bucherer in Europe. And if you know Moser, you know they mostly come in precious metals with the exception of the Pioneer and also this watch, which if you're not willing to spring for the Patek Philippe pilot's watch, but you like pretty much similar quality, or perhaps you want something a little bit higher than that Zenith pilot's watch, this is a really great option, and it's in a smaller form factor, which for pilot's watches in today is pretty difficult. If you know me, today on my wrist I have a 16550, so a transitional Explorer 2, but if you know me, I have a Moser, I love my Moser, and I know that actually, just by looking at this, I kind of want to put this in my collection. Let me set this down. Let's talk about the topic before I just am stuck staring at this thing for the remainder of the video. So, Will Ferrell, the first watch that I have noticed he has been wearing is an Iwc Portuguese Chronograph. Now, the one that he's seen in the picture here wearing is the one with kind of the off-white, I think they might call it silver because it's a little bit metallic, but it looks really more of an off-white to me. Dial with the gold hands. I really like this watch a whole lot. I think it's classic. I think it's timeless. It's very elegant. Chronographs are supposed to be sporty in nature, but in fact, it does look very elegant and classy, and it's more of a dress chronograph, ironically enough. This watch retails for about $7,000 US, but typically pre-owned, you can get these anywhere between $3,500 to $4,500, just depending on box and papers, condition, the dial variant. For example, some of the dials, I think there's a blue dial of this, it goes at a much higher premium than something like this, but nonetheless, this is a very classy piece to see, kind of a funny guy wearing, and I mean that in not a negative way. So if Will Ferrell's watching this, I don't mean anything negatively about that, just did not expect this watch on a comedian. So rolling into the next watch is basically a Rolex Submariner, but this is the anniversary edition, and it's what is otherwise casually known as the Kermit. Now, if you're familiar with the Rolex Submariner Hulk, it's the green ceramic bezel with the green dial Submariner in the maxi case. But what we have here is a model that was produced from around 2003 to 2005. So limited production run. These things trade upwards of $20,000 plus, depending on the variation, but on average, they trade for around $14,000. Now, this is a watch that truly was produced for a short period of time, and it's almost kind of the precursor to what we have now known as the Hulk, which is, once again, the green on green. So I like this one a whole lot. It's from kind of that almost transitional period where Rolex hadn't quite solidified themselves as a luxury brand. They were still very tool watches, but now this is much more of a collectible and probably a future big price bell winner at the auctions. What do you think about the Kermit? Leave in the comments below. Would love to hear your opinion on the Kermit. The next one that I saw Will Ferrell wearing, and this is actually what kind of spawned this video, is I saw him on a this Netflix special where some other comedian, they're basically just running around on the street yelling at people in the streets of New York City, and I saw him very clearly wearing a Rolex Explorer 39. So I doubt he had to wait on a wait list to obtain this one, but essentially this is a pretty recent release on Netflix, so I think that this is probably a new addition to his collection, and I've seen a lot of his other work in the past, and I haven't really seen him wearing a lot of watches until I saw this, and it really kind of kicked me into finding him wearing watches. But of course, you all know this watch, very classic sport watch. It's an explorer's watch, of course. It is called the Explorer. It's supposed to be rugged, durable, and it's timeless, right? The Explorer today looks a lot like an Explorer 1016, even though there's some changes to kind of modernize it. But nonetheless, the Explorer is a long-running historical Rolex timepiece. Sure, it's not the most in-demand sports watch, but if you see the other watches on his list, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's attracted to only the most desirable watches, which a lot of celebrities are, and I really can admire that in Will. Now, the next one is another IWC, and it's another IWC chronograph. This one, I think, is going to be pictured here. It's a little difficult to make out, but it's an IWC Spitfyre chronograph. Now, they produced these for a while, and now the Spitfires kind of come back as more of an approachable pilot's line from IWC, but IWC was producing these for a while. Now their pilots' chronographs are typically in the 42 millimeter range, but I think at this time they were closer to 39-40. Once again, it's tough to see it on the wrist, but the one that I have pictured here, I like a whole lot. And when I think of IWC sport watches and IWC chronographs, I always think of this watch, and I'm not sure why. I think it's just because there were so many of these floating out there for a period of time that a lot of people bought these in a period of time where there were just not that many sport chronographs that were in this few $1,000 price point. I think the one pictured here had a retail of $5, but they were likely trading pre-owned in the $2K range. So it was a really good option then, 8 years ago. And even today, the Spitfire line is very cool, and you can swing yourself into it if, your budget is not absolutely in the air. So very cool watch. And lastly, this is kind of a disappointing watch that I saw on his wrist, and it's from a brand called, now I'll try to say this with a straight face, Glam Rock. And if any of you have one of these and you enjoy it, okay, props to you. But I have to say that it's not really a watch collector's watch. It's not really a watch buff's watch. This is a watch brand that has their offices, in the deep hearts of Miami here, by some individuals that are, pretty much shelled around a Delaware trading company. And there's not a whole lot of information about this brand besides what they have on their website. And what they have on their website is pictures of a lot of popular celebrities today, but in their earliest time period. I think that their strategy, maybe 10 years ago when, probably Will was taken, his photograph was taken wearing this watch, I think they were probably giving these watches away to celebrities, and they had high retails, maybe $5,000, $10,000 at the time when, in reality it is, not the highest quality of watches, and they would give, a watch, for example, to Kim Kardashian, to LeBron James, when they first just started hitting the scene in their earliest points of their career where no one was giving them anything, which I think is smart from a marketing perspective, because now on their website they have photographs of some very big name celebrities wearing these watches, but I can probably guarantee that all of them regret this, including LeBron James, that has, AP watches, currently wearing Richard Mille, so it's probably a little bit embarrassing, but of course people remember where they came from, and this is what was available to them at the time. So what do you guys think about Will Ferrell's watch collection? I know it's very simple and very modest, but he has a couple of pieces in here that I think we can all really admire. Are there any other celebrities you would love to know what watches that are on their wrists? I would actually be pretty curious to find out below which watch guy or girl celebrities that you really look up to in terms of their collection. So comments below, like and subscribe, Instagram The Real John P. You know the drill. You have been chatting with John P. Ciao.